She boarded the plane wearing fitted pastel pink leggings and a snug white cropped flight jacket. Her ponytail bounced lightly as she walked the aisle. Some passengers looked up, assuming she was an influencer or a fashion blogger. Definitely not someone trained to fly a Boeing. Lucy took her seat quietly near the emergency exit. She glanced at the wing, her eyes scanning like a habit burned deep into muscle memory. She wasn't trying to draw attention, just doing what came naturally. But to the people around her, she was just another pretty girl traveling alone. As she adjusted her seatbelt, a passing co-pilot whispered just loud enough for her to hear. "She thinks she's in the Air Force or something," he muttered to a flight attendant who stifled a laugh. Lucy didn't respond. She didn't flinch. She just smiled to herself and looked back out the window. Nobody knew her name. Nobody knew her background. And nobody, absolutely nobody, knew what was about to happen. 3 hours into the sky, when things would go horribly wrong, when trained professionals would panic, and when all hope seemed lost, the woman they laughed at would be the one to save them all, and no one saw it coming, not even him. Lucy grew up where the skies stretched wide and open, rural Idaho, where the sound of the wind was louder than traffic, and the nearest airport was a dusty airstrip used by farmers and hobby pilots. Her earliest memory wasn't of dolls or cartoons. It was standing in her front yard, watching a single-engine prop plane fly low over the fields, her small hand shielding her eyes, her heart pounding like it was calling her to the clouds. But flying wasn't a dream in her family, it was a wound. Lucy's father, a volunteer search and rescue pilot, died in a crash when she was just 6. They said it was mechanical failure. Her mother never talked about it. The world expected Lucy to stay grounded, to be afraid, to play it safe. But even as a little girl, Lucy wasn't built for fear. By 14, she was saving every penny she earned from babysitting and cleaning barns. By 17, she had talked her way into lessons at a local flying school. Most of the instructors didn't take her seriously. A blonde teenager in tight jeans and tank tops wasn't exactly the image of a pilot they respected. Still, Lucy flew every early morning, every dusty afternoon, in wind, in rain, in blistering sun. She didn't care how they looked at her, just how the yoke felt in her hands. She flew crop dusters to pay for advanced training. She taught emergency landing simulations to rookie pilots. She logged more hours in the air by 22 than most commercial pilots had by 30. But no matter how many licenses she earned or how flawless her records were, every major airline she applied to looked past her qualifications and straight at her. We're looking for someone with more command presence. You might intimidate passengers in that outfit. Maybe start with customer service and work your way up. She was told more than once that maybe she should smile more and try modeling. After years of rejection, Lucy stopped applying. She didn't stop flying, but she stopped expecting the world to see her for what she truly was. To most people, she was just a pretty face in leggings and a cropped jacket, but in the sky, she was something else entirely. The airport buzzed with its usual rhythm, announcements echoing, suitcases rolling, strangers weaving through security lines like silent dancers. Lucy moved through it all with quiet ease. She wasn't dressed to impress, just to travel light and stay comfortable. Tight coral leggings hugged her toned legs, and her fitted white cropped jacket zipped neatly over a sky blue tank. Her blonde ponytail swayed with every confident step. She wore no heels, no jewelry, no flashy bag, just purpose. Today's flight was headed to Denver. Her niece, Lily, was undergoing emergency heart surgery at a children's hospital downtown. Lucy didn't hesitate to be there. Family came first. She booked the earliest ticket she could find and made her way to gate 17. At the counter, she asked for a seat closer to the emergency exit. "Just a preference," she said with a friendly smile. The agent raised a brow, scanning her outfit briefly before printing the pass without comment. As she boarded the plane, her eyes automatically scanned the aircraft structure, the wing alignment, engine placement, even the rivets on the fuselage. Years of training had burned those habits into her. She didn't even realize she was doing it anymore. 2 crew members stood near the cockpit, an older silver-haired pilot reviewing a tablet and a sharply dressed co-pilot adjusting his tie in the reflection of the door. The younger one, Blake, caught sight of Lucy and smirked. "Guess we're flying Instagram class today," he whispered to the flight attendant beside him. "Hope the turbulence doesn't mess up her makeup." Lucy heard it, of course. She always did. Still, she said nothing, just gave a short nod and moved down the aisle. She settled into her window seat, row 14, over the wing. Her gaze drifted to the sky, clear, crisp, perfect flying weather, but something didn't sit right. She'd seen the captain's face, the way his fingers trembled ever so slightly, the deep furrow in his brow. Experience taught Lucy to spot unease in a pilot's posture, and Hal, the captain, was worried. Meanwhile, Blake, the co-pilot, looked more concerned about his reflection than the flight path. The passengers around her buzzed with small talk. Some watched movies, others scrolled their phones. No one knew what was coming, but Lucy felt it. She didn't know the exact moment or the exact way, but something was going to go wrong, and when it did, they'd need more than a pretty face to survive it. The plane cruised at 36,000 feet, slicing through the sky with ease. Outside the windows, the clouds looked soft and harmless, a gentle sea of white stretching to the horizon, but Lucy's instincts said otherwise. She had flown enough to know when the air wasn't still, when a jetliner felt a little too tense in the sky, like it was bracing for something. The seatbelt sign blinked on unexpectedly. A subtle dip followed, then a quiet vibration beneath her feet. Most passengers barely noticed. A baby cried a few rows ahead. A man cursed under his breath as his soda spilled. Flight attendants moved briskly, smiles fixed but eyes alert. Lucy sat still, every muscle on edge. She reached down and tightened her belt. Her eyes scanned the overhead lights, the emergency card, the sound of the engine hum, until a faint noise caught her attention. A stutter, then a skip. One of the engines didn't sound right. The intercom clicked on. "Ladies and gentlemen," said a strained voice, Blake's, "we're experiencing a brief systems irregularity. Please remain seated and buckled. Everything is under control." But it wasn't. Lucy's heart dropped when she saw the curtain to the cockpit whip open and two flight attendants rush in with urgency. Not routine, not calm, panic. Seconds later, the cabin lights flickered. A jolt rocked the aircraft. A woman screamed. The plane tilted slightly left, then jerked back right. The aisles lit up in red emergency floor lights for a moment, then went dark again before returning to normal. Lucy's hands gripped the armrests. She could hear Blake's voice through the partially open cockpit. "He's not responding. He's unconscious. Oh God, oh God." The captain, down. Lucy shot up from her seat. A flight attendant tried to block her. "Ma'am, please sit. I can fly the plane," Lucy said calmly. "I'm a licensed pilot. Let me help." The attendant hesitated, torn between protocol and survival, but just then, a new sound joined the chaos. The warning chime. Altitude drop. Lucy's voice was firm now. "You have a cockpit with no captain, an aircraft losing stability, and a storm system dead ahead. You can either keep following rules, or you can let me save everyone." Behind her, gasps rippled across the rows. Some passengers whispered, others stared in disbelief. The same woman they had judged, dismissed, was now standing, composed, confident, and claiming she could fly a commercial jet. And whether they believed her or not, they were running out of time, fast. The cockpit door stood open now, chaos spilling out like pressurized air. Inside, the co-pilot, Blake, was pale and trembling, desperately flipping switches that weren't responding. The captain slumped against his seat, unresponsive, his lips slightly blue. The autopilot was disengaged. The storm had hit early. Lucy stepped forward. "I'm a certified pilot. I've logged more hours than some of your trainers. Let me help." Blake snapped his head around. "You can't be serious. This is a 737, not a crop duster. Get back to your seat. I've flown this model in simulation hundreds of times. I know its flight logic. Right now, you're losing altitude, your stabilizer's unresponsive, and your captain is unconscious. Do you really think you can land this alone?" Blake's jaw tightened. Sweat dripped from his forehead. "This isn't your place," he barked. "You're not qualified. You're not male?" Lucy cut in, calm but sharp. "Wearing a uniform? Is that the real issue?" The flight attendant, Marla, stood frozen behind them, watching the exchange, eyes darting from Blake to Lucy. Blake shook his head, muttering, "This is insane. I can't risk letting you—" "No," Lucy interrupted, stepping into the cockpit now. "You can't risk not letting me." Another hard jolt hit the aircraft. An overhead bin popped open behind them. A laptop flew out and struck the ground. Passengers screamed. Oxygen masks dropped. Time was gone. Options were fewer. Marla made the call. Let her in. Blake hesitated, then stepped aside, jaw clenched, ego bruised. Lucy slid into the left seat, the captain's chair, and it felt like coming home. Her fingers moved fast, checking altitude, wind speed, remaining fuel. The storm's edge was showing on the radar. They were in its path. You've got a hydraulic fail on the rudder. The emergency backup might still be responsive. Try rerouting power through the secondary panel. I'll stabilize our descent manually. Blake blinked at her. How do you know all this? Because while you were mocking my outfit, she said, eyes locked on the instruments. I was flying aircraft older than your ego through worse storms than this. He didn't respond. Lucy took the controls, breath steady, posture solid. She wasn't here for recognition. She was here to make sure no one died. And now, the woman no one trusted had everyone's lives in her hands. The cockpit was tense. Red lights blinked across the control panel like a warning no one could ignore. Alarms wailed. The storm outside raged in full force now. Clouds black and boiling, rain lashing against the windshield, turbulence shaking the cabin like a toy in a child's fist. Lucy gripped the yoke firmly, her eyes scanning the altimeter. They were dropping, fast. We've got microbursts ahead, she said quickly. Cut throttle to idle and prep for a manual descent. Blake hesitated. We'll stall. We'll crash if we don't. He obeyed. Behind them, Marla relayed orders to the cabin. Passengers sobbed into oxygen masks. A child wailed in the distance. The plane groaned under pressure. Then came the next blow. The landing gear warning. It hadn't deployed. Lucy's voice dropped to a sharp whisper. Manual override. Now. She yanked the release lever near her left leg. It resisted, jammed from ice buildup. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. Switch cabin pressure to emergency. Prepare for a rough impact. The runway lights flickered on in the distance. They were aligned, but coming in fast. Too fast. Flaps to full, she ordered. We need drag. Give me everything. She felt it. The weight of the aircraft fighting her. The metal groaning as she adjusted pitch and descent angle. The controls were sluggish. The response delayed. Hold it. Steady. She whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Blake stared at her in disbelief. The same woman he'd laughed at earlier, now his only link between life and death. A violent gust slammed the right side of the plane, pitching them off balance. Lucy fought it, pulling, countering, coaxing the jet back into alignment with muscles that had trained for moments exactly like this. Seconds stretched. The cabin fell silent. Then, contact, a thunderous screech. The rear wheel slammed the tarmac, skidding violently. Sparks flew. Passengers screamed. Lucy braced as she pulled up the nose, hard. The front wheel slammed down. Metal screamed again. Emergency lights danced across the windows, but the plane was on the ground, slowing, sliding, safe. They came to a stop just past the runway threshold. Silence. And then, slowly, applause. It started somewhere in the back, then spread. Loud, thunderous, disbelieving applause. Lucy leaned back in the captain's chair, breathing hard. Her hands trembled slightly now, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from everything she'd just done. Blake sat in stunned silence beside her, unable to speak. Lucy unbuckled her harness, stood, and looked at him. Next time, she said softly, don't judge the pilot by her leggings. Then she stepped out of the cockpit, and the entire cabin watched her like they were seeing her for the very first time, because now they weren't looking at a pretty woman in tight clothes. They were looking at a hero. The emergency vehicles swarmed the runway, lights flashing, sirens wailing, but no one moved inside the plane. They were still staring at her. Lucy, the woman they'd ignored, dismissed, whispered about. Now she stood calmly near the emergency exit, her fitted white jacket streaked with sweat and streaks of engine soot, her coral leggings dusted with grime from the manual override lever. Her blonde ponytail had come a little loose, but her posture, still strong, still steady. The doors opened. EMTs rushed in. They wheeled the unconscious captain out on a stretcher, his pulse weak but steady. He would survive thanks to Lucy's emergency descent that had avoided a catastrophic drop in cabin pressure. Outside, the tarmac glistened under the rain. The storm had passed, but its echo still lingered in the silence of the cabin. An airline supervisor tried to stop her at the foot of the stairs. Ma'am, we'll need you to stay for debrief. I'm not crew, she said calmly, just a passenger. She handed him her ID. His eyes widened as he read the line that said certified commercial pilot, multi-engine rating. Wait, you're really? Yes, she said, I really am. She walked into the terminal like nothing had happened. No reporters, no selfies, no crowd waiting to lift her onto their shoulders. She just sat down alone at gate C-22, sipping a paper cup of black coffee, watching planes land like any other traveler. A little girl approached her with wide eyes and a shaky voice. "My mom says you're the lady who saved us." Lucy smiled gently. "I'm just someone who did what needed to be done." The girl hesitated, then whispered, "Were you scared?" Lucy thought for a moment. Of course, but being scared doesn't mean you stop. It means you care. The girl smiled and ran back to her mom. Lucy turned back to the runway. No cameras, no medals, but she didn't need them because today, without permission, without validation, and without a uniform, she proved what she always knew. You don't need to look like a hero to be one. They all thought they knew who Lucy was. A pretty woman in leggings, just another passenger, just another face. They watched her, whispered about her, laughed quietly when she asked for the exit row. They looked at her clothes, her smile, her soft voice, and they judged. But when everything fell apart, when the plane dropped, the cockpit failed, and trained professionals froze, it wasn't the uniform or the title that saved them. It was her, the woman they overlooked, the woman they mocked, the woman they assumed didn't belong. She didn't need to prove herself with status or swagger. She didn't need to shout or ask for credit. She simply showed up and saved 217 lives. Why? Because true strength doesn't always announce itself. It waits, it watches, and when the world needs it most, it acts. So next time you think someone's not capable because of how they look, what they wear, or where they sit, ask yourself one question. What if that person turns out to be the one who saves you? Because heroes don't always wear badges. Sometimes they wear coral leggings, a white jacket, and a quiet sense of purpose. And sometimes they fly planes. We all do it, don't we? We see someone, and within seconds, we decide who they are. Too young, too soft, too pretty, too quiet. We label, we assume, we judge. But the truth is, what's on the surface rarely tells the whole story, because courage doesn't wear designer labels, skill doesn't ask for attention, and real heroes, they don't wait for permission to do the right thing. Lucy didn't need a uniform to fly that plane. She didn't need applause to know her worth. She just needed one moment, one chance to show the world that value isn't worn, it's earned. So the next time you think someone doesn't belong, look again, because you might be staring at someone extraordinary, someone who won't just prove you wrong. They might be the one who saves you.